Hey guys, we're kicking off a brand new drama that comes with a pretty unique concept, packed with mystery and intrigue. At the very beginning, we meet a girl named Shin who wakes up to the sound of a car outside. Curious, she peeks through her window, which is oddly covered with pieces of cardboard. Through it, she spots another girl named Sin walking to school right in front of her house. She also notices a strange red line hovering above them. Sin's uncle tries to convince her to go with him, but she refuses and they part ways. Right after that, Shin sees another girl standing outside, someone who just moved into the neighborhood. This girl also has multiple red lines passing over her. When she notices Shin watching her, she waves, but Shin quickly shuts her window. Later, we see Shin eating at home, watching TV, and sharing a bit about herself. She tells us that she's been seeing red lines since she was a child. As she got older, she began to understand what they meant. She even saw those lines on her father's head. Then we see her mother staring at a drawing, one that reveals her father's connection not just with her mom, but also with her aunt. That shocking discovery led to a tragic moment. Her mother ended up stabbing her father. Shin witnessed everything. She started to believe that seeing these red lines meant someone was destined to die. Overwhelmed by fear and confusion, she shut her eyes and tried multiple times to end her life, jumping off the roof, slitting her wrists, even hanging herself from a ceiling fan. But every single time she survived, her wounds would mysteriously heal on their own, as if someone or something was protecting her. Eventually, she found herself completely alone. That's when she made a decision. She had to uncover the truth. What do these red lines really mean? Who created them? Can anyone else see them? And more importantly, how can she break this curse? As she's lost in thought, the doorbell rings. When she answers it, she sees the same girl from earlier standing outside. But Shin doesn't open the door. The girl introduces herself, saying she just moved into the neighborhood. She tries to be friendly and spark a conversation, but Shin still refuses to let her in. Eventually, the girl gives up. She leaves a small basket of fruit at Shin's doorstep and walks away. Shin opens the door, picks up the fruit, and eats it. It's clear that she hasn't had something like this in a long time. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Kian's uncle, Juk. He arrives at the police station because he's actually a police officer. While parking his car, Juk accidentally scratches his friend's vehicle. Later, when he gets to the office, he apologizes to his friend Dong. Another officer walks in and asks why Juk showed up at that hour. Juk replies that he was just trying to fulfill his responsibility as an uncle, but adds that today's teenagers can be incredibly stubborn point. One of the officers teases him, asking what will happen to his niece once Juk gets married. The rest of the officers laugh along. Then we see Juk getting a bit closer to a female colleague who invites him to her upcoming wedding, but Juk clearly has no interest in attending. Meanwhile, we shift to a school rooftop where a girl named Kim Hai walks in on a disturbing scene. Kian is being bullied harshly by a group of girls. Kim Hai joins in and slaps Kian, demanding to know why she didn't bring the money they asked for and if she was the one who reported them to the police. Kian denies everything. Kim Hai then scolds her for not answering calls or messages and warns her not to assume she's safe just because her uncle is a cop. She hits Kian again, but this time Kian smirks, an expression that irritates Kim Hai even more. Furious, she threatens that if Kian reports them again like last time, she'll really push her off the rooftop. Right after this intense moment, we see Juk arriving at a crime scene where a girl has been murdered. Dong-sik tells Juk that the victim's parents live far away and they don't have any information about her partner either, so they'll need to look into it further. The two of them begin examining the apartment carefully. In the kitchen, they find several restaurant delivery boxes. The entire place is spotless, almost like someone who already knew the victim had been there. Another detective arrives and mentions that a neighbor saw a man wearing a helmet the night before. He looked like a food delivery guy. Later, Dong-sik says he's puzzled by the motive behind the murder. The money was untouched, and there were no signs of physical assault. The victim didn't seem like the type to have enemies. In fact, she regularly ordered a lot of food. But oddly enough, on the day of the murder, she didn't order anything. Juk then asks if she was dating anyone. Dong-sik replies that she had been in a relationship, but it ended about a year ago. In the next scene, we return to Shin, who's just received a delivery. After taking the package, she sits down to watch TV. The news is covering the very same murder. It's now the third one in the area. On screen, Shin notices a man who looks just like a food delivery guy wearing a helmet. A single red line runs down from his head. Shin thinks to herself, seeing hundreds of red lines is rare, but seeing just one is even rarer, especially at the scene of a murder. Suddenly, she spots the same kind of man outside her window, walking into the building across the street. Terrified, she searches for her phone, but it's switched off. She scrambles to plug it in and get it charging. When Shin looks out the window again, she sees the helmet-wearing man meeting up with the same girl she saw earlier. Just as her phone finally powers on, she quickly calls the police to report that the man is right outside her building. But moments later, she realizes something, they're actually lovers. She immediately hangs up. Then something strange happens. Another red line appears over the man. Suddenly, red lines start showing up all around Shin. The overwhelming sight fills her with anxiety and fear. The next day at school, Kim-hae looks over at Shin's empty seat and sarcastically asks, "Is she not planning to come to school today?" Then, she and her friends break the lock on Shen's locker and start digging through her things. They find a love letter and mock it, laughing as they read it aloud. Meanwhile, Juk arrives home and tries to relax. Sen walks in. Juk asks why she skipped school. Instead of answering, she asks him for money. He gives her some and says he'll give her the rest later. But then, Sen looks at him and bluntly asks, "How much more can you give me?" Juk notices a bruise on her face and asks what happened. Concerned, he questions why she needs the money. San responds with attitude, repeating her question, "How much can you give?" before angrily storming off to her room. Juk steps out onto his balcony and gazes across the way at the neighboring apartment, the one with cardboard covering all the windows. Just then, he gets a call. Someone from that very apartment reported seeing a man in a helmet, matching the description of the food delivery suspect in the recent murder case. So, Juk heads over to the apartment and knocks. He identifies himself as a detective and says he's here to talk about the call that was made. Shin watches him from inside, silently observing. In her mind, she thinks it's the first time she's ever seen someone with so many red lines on them. Juk waits patiently, but the door doesn't open. Just then, another man approaches him and says the girl who lives there never comes outside. In fact, someone else even takes out her trash. Juk starts walking away, but then turns back and calls out again, saying he's just here to talk about the report. If she saw anything, she can share it with him. After a brief pause, Shin finally opens the door. She tells him that she misunderstood the situation. She had seen a man who looked like a food delivery guy and thought the woman across the street was in danger, so she called the police. But later, she realized they were just a couple. Juk then asks her, "Don't you go to school? Where are your parents?" Shin doesn't answer. Instead, she immediately shuts the door in his face. Right after that, we see another food delivery guy arriving in the same neighborhood. Shin peeks out of her window again and spots him. It's the same man, the one with a single red line running down his head. The man looks directly towards Shin's apartment, and the scene cuts. Next, we see Sen receiving a message from Kim-hae. She's told to come to school and bring the money with her. Right after, Sen notices a woman nearby taking out some cash and walking away. Sen begins following her. She gets closer, and just as she's about to snatch the woman's purse, a group of people walks up from the front, so she hesitates and pulls back. At that moment, she also spots the same girls from school who've been bullying her. Meanwhile, Juk and Dong are together going over the murder case. Dong tells Juk that the victim's ex-boyfriend is a man named Jong-min, and he's a school teacher. He then hands Juk Jong-min's address, which turns out to be just around the corner from Juk's own house. Dong adds that in the previous murder case, the victim used to go to the same gym as Jong-min. In fact, Jong-min is the only common link. He knew both of the murdered women. Juk asks to see a photo of him. The moment he looks at it, he recognizes Jong-min as the same man he once saw outside Sen's apartment. Just then, Juk gets an urgent phone call and heads out. On the way, he tries calling his dad, but there's no answer. When he reaches the hospital, a nurse informs him that his father has gone missing. They've searched everywhere, but there's no sign of him. Juk rushes to the rooftop, and there, he finds his father standing dangerously close to the edge. Luckily, the nurses arrive just in time and manage to get him down safely. Meanwhile, Dong arrives at Jong-min's apartment. The door is already open. As he steps inside, he notices something strange. One of the walls is smeared with red paint. The whole room feels off, almost disturbing. He calls Juk and begins to explain that something's not right about this place. But before he can finish, we suddenly see Jong-min standing right behind him. Jong-min attacks Dong, beating him until he falls unconscious. The phone call cuts off abruptly. Back on the other end, Juk tries calling Dong again, but the call won't connect. Meanwhile, Jong-min, now wearing a helmet, mutters to himself, "Only one left now," and leaves the apartment. From her window, Shin sees him. He still has that single red line above his head. Terrified, she realizes what's about to happen. Her phone is off again. In a panic, she grabs a knife and, summoning every ounce of courage, steps outside her apartment, but she can barely stand. She stumbles as she makes her way down the stairs. Just as she reaches the bottom, she comes face to face with the killer. Overwhelmed, she faints on the spot. While unconscious, Shin sees a vision of her mother, her hand covered in blood. Her mother reaches out to her. Shin tries to grab her hand, but then everything fades and she faints again. At the same time, another girl opens her apartment door, thinking her boyfriend has arrived. But when she sees Jong-min remove his helmet, she's startled. "Why are you here?" she asks. Jong-min, who can also see red lines, suddenly lunges forward and grabs her by the neck, trying to strangle her. Just then, Shin arrives and yells at him to stop. She pleads with him to let the girl go, but Jong-min isn't fazed. Da-hee scoffs and says, "What's she gonna do? Stab me with that knife?" Then tauntingly adds, "Go ahead and try." Shin is visibly trembling. Jong-min snatches the knife from her hand and stabs her with it. He turns back to finish off the girl, but this time she fights back. She pushes him with all her strength, and his glasses fly off, landing far away. The girl immediately rushes to check on Shin, trying to wake her up. Meanwhile, Jong-min, now blind without his glasses, begins frantically searching for them, completely panicked. Eventually, Jong-min finds his glasses. At the same time, Juk arrives and notices Sen's glasses lying outside. This leads him straight to her apartment. Inside, he spots several strange things that raise suspicion. Suddenly, he hears screams coming from the apartment across the hall. He looks over and sees the killer attacking the girl. Jong-min is just about to kill her when Shin stabs him in the leg with a knife. Furious, Jong-min yanks the knife from his thigh and prepares to strike Shin again, but just then Juk fires his gun from across the hallway, hitting Jong-min and stopping him. As Jong-min lies dying, he mutters his final words. The red lines, they're disappearing. Shin hears this clearly. Later, the police arrive and Shin is treated for her injuries. Juk returns her glasses. As she looks at them, she quietly wonders, could that man see the red lines too? She remembers how, when he wore the glasses, he could see them and falls into deep thought. After the police leave, Juk approaches Shin. She asks him about the man who died, who he really was. Juk simply replies, "I'll tell you later." Just then, Sin shows up, looks at Shin, and casually asks, "Why is she wearing sunglasses at night?" Juk turns to both of them and asks, "Do you two know each other?" But neither of them responds. In the next scene, we see Sin alone in her room. Her uncle walks in, but Sin coldly says, "If you're not here to give him, you can leave." Juk sighs and replies, "Am I your ATM?" Then he sits down and gently asks if something happened at school, assuring her she can talk to him. But Chen lashes out, saying, "What's the point? Nothing's going to change." Juk tries to tell her that some problems can be solved, but Chen gets angrier. She accuses him, asking if he's going to help this time or just disappear like before. She says he's never really cared about her. The words hit Juk hard. Without saying much, he quietly leaves the room. As he walks out, Sin stops him and asks, "Who is that girl? What were you two doing together?" Juk again asks, "Do you know her?" Sin finally answers, "We were classmates in middle school." Then after a pause, she adds, "After that, my mom killed my dad and ran away." Meanwhile, we see Shin sitting alone on a rooftop, thinking back to when the girl thanked her for saving her life. And in that moment, Shin realizes something powerful. Seeing red lines doesn't just mean death, it can also mean saving lives. She starts wondering what she should do next. When she removes her glasses, she's shocked. Red lines are everywhere. Just then, she receives a message from an unknown number. It reads, "I can see the world you are seeing. Come to Arc High School." And with that, the episode ends. We're now on episode 2 of S Line Dot. The episode opens with the introduction of a teacher named Gyu-jin, who teaches at the same school that Kian attends. Then we cut to Shin, who's staring at an old message on her phone. She starts pulling down the curtains from her windows and begins cleaning her apartment. Next, we shift to Kian, who arrives at her classroom. But as soon as she walks in, she sees an obscene drawing of herself sketched on the board. Although she's clearly hurt, she doesn't say anything and quietly goes to her seat. Meanwhile, her classmates are laughing, and Kim Hae starts reading out loud a one-sided love letter that Kian had written, mocking her in front of everyone. Kian, unable to take it, pushes Kim Hae off the bench to snatch the letter back. But Kim Hae fights back and starts hitting her. That's when teacher Gyu-jin walks in, sees the chaos, and immediately pulls Kim Hae away and rips the letter apart. Later, Gyu-jin speaks to Kian privately and gently explains that violence isn't the solution. If she keeps reacting this way, even the teachers won't be able to support her. But Kian, still filled with rage, mutters that she'll kill her and storms out of school. As she's leaving, she finds a pair of glasses in her locker. She picks them up, confused, wondering how they ended up there. Meanwhile, at the police station, Detective Dong is furious with Juk for sending him alone to the killer's house. He barely escaped with his life. Gyu-jin apologizes, saying there was a real emergency. He's now busy filing a report since he had to shoot the killer. As Juk goes through the case materials again, Dong asks him why he's still digging. Wasn't the killer already caught? Juk replies that something still feels off. He can't figure out the killer's real motive or how he was connected to the victims. Dong shrugs it off, saying the guy was just lashing out after bad breakups. They also discuss how the killer talked about salvation, but it didn't really match his personality, especially since he was a math teacher, not someone you'd expect to have religious obsessions. Later, Juk visits Jong Min's house and notices the same eerie red walls. There are red lines painted all over, giving him a strange, unsettling feeling. Back at her apartment, Kian, now wearing the glasses, begins to see those same red lines too. She's confused and terrified. Then Juk returns home, and that's when Sin sees it, multiple red lines appearing all over his head. It terrifies her. She runs out of the house in a panic. Outside, Shin spots her and looks confused by Sin's strange behavior. But as Sin walks further down the road surrounded by people, she sees even more red lines around them. Something is definitely off. The next day, Sin's uncle offers to walk her to school again. But when she looks at him and sees those same red lines on his head, she refuses to go with him. So she heads to school alone. Thanks to the glasses, she's in a surprisingly good mood. But there's something new. She's now seeing red lines on everyone's heads. That's when she notices something strange. Teacher Gyu-jin is the only one who doesn't have any red lines. Maybe she's never been in a relationship before. As In keeps walking, she spots her school bullies again. And yes, they have red lines too. But what completely shocks her is Kim Hae. One of the red lines from Kim Hae's head stretches all the way to a classroom window. T-sun follows it, and to her surprise, the person on the other end is a teacher from their school. That's when it hits her. Kim Hae is in a relationship with a teacher. In the next scene, Gyu-jin introduces a new student to the class, and it's Shin. She tells her to go sit down at her desk. T.A. San stares at her, confused, wondering why she's suddenly transferred to their school. Meanwhile, at the police station, Juk is looking at a school poster from Jong Min's former workplace. That's when something clicks. He remembers the glasses and starts to feel something's not right. He rushes to check the evidence box, but the glasses are missing. So, Juk heads straight to Jong Min's old school, where he meets teacher Gyu-jin. She asks how she can help. Juk introduces himself as a detective and says he has some questions. Gyu-jin replies, "Oh, aren't you T-sun's father?" But Juk quickly corrects her, saying he's her uncle. They sit down to talk. Gyu-jin mentions that San hasn't been doing very well in school and thought he should know. Juk apologizes, saying he's been too busy lately to give her the attention she needs. But he makes it clear he didn't come here for CEN. He's here because of a murder investigation. He asks her about Jong Min, saying he used to be a math teacher there until last year and that he's now dead. Not only that, he was revealed to be a serial killer. Jin is shocked to hear this. Juk then asks her if Jong Min always wore glasses, but she says no. She never saw him wear glasses. The scene shifts to the school rooftop, where Kim Hae slaps again, causing her glasses to fall. Kian picks them up and puts them back on. Just as Kim Hae is about to hit her again, Kian grabs her hand and firmly tells her that she's not giving her any more money. Kim Hae taunts her, asking if she's not even embarrassed anymore. But Kian calmly replies that she should be the one feeling embarrassed. Kim Hae gets angry, kicks her, and yells, "Then tell me what I should be ashamed of." Just then, Shin arrives and stops her from hurting Kian any further. Kim Hae snaps at Shin and asks if they're together, then tries to attack Shin too. But Shin grabs Kim Hae's tie and says, "Let's both jump together." That line shocks Kim Hae. She looks scared. Shin then makes her promise not to bother them anymore. Kim Hae reluctantly agrees, mutters, "Crazy woman," and walks away. After that, Kian asks her why she's helping her. She never asked for her help. Shin asks if she's still mad at her. Kian replies, "Why would I be mad at you?" Then coldly adds, "Just don't interfere my business," and walks away. Juk is about to leave when the teacher asks if he's not going to meet Sin. Juk refuses, saying that if Sin finds out he came to school, she'll freak out. The teacher, Gin, seems quite interested in Juk. As Juk is leaving, Kian sees him and wonders what he's doing there. Next, Juk goes to a bar that Jong Min used to visit often. He shows the bartender Jong Min's photo and says he's a detective working on a case. The bartender tells him that Jong Min used to come there a lot, drank alone, and sometimes spoke to himself almost like he was counting something. He also once got into a fight with another customer. We then see a flashback. Jong Min is counting red lines on people's heads and acting strange. A man asks him what he's doing, and Jong Min laughs and says, "That's a lot of lines," which makes the man angry and he starts hitting Jong-min back in the present. Juk is writing all this down in his diary when the bartender also mentions that Jong-min used to wear glasses. In the next scene, Ki-in is following Kim Hae. She sees her meeting the teacher and secretly records a video of them going into a hotel together. Ki-in feels pleased after capturing the video. Kim Hae, who is inside the hotel, receives a message from Ki-in containing that same photo, but Kim Hae doesn't seem affected at all. Later, when the teacher comes out of the washroom, Kim Hae asks him, "What would you do if people found out we were dating?" The teacher doesn't take her seriously. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, Sien waits alone. Suddenly, she receives a message from Kim Hae. It says that even if everything is exposed, the teacher will be punished, not her, because she's still a minor. The next day at school, some teachers gather to discuss a shocking rumor. A female teacher is allegedly having an affair with a student. They call it criminal and warn each other to stay careful. Among them is the teacher dating Kim Hae. Nervously, he jokes that he's too old for any student to like him. Just then, he receives a message. It's the same photo that Sien had earlier, and it sends chills down his spine. The message demands 20 million won to keep things quiet. Later, Shin and Sien are walking home together. Sien says she doesn't want to live here anymore. Shin reminds her that she still has an uncle, but Shin replies coldly that she doesn't consider him family. Sien then asks about Shin's mother, if she's alive. Shin quietly says she doesn't know. Sien adds that if her mom were alive, she would have reached out by now. Shin falls silent, clearly hurt. That night, Shin sits alone in her room, staring out the window at a happy family across the street. While others enjoy love and warmth, she feels lost and alone. Now we shift to the same teacher who had earlier warned Kim Hae. He now looks scared and restless. Later, when Kim Hae is playing basketball, he walks up to her and questions her behavior. Kim Hae calmly says it's Sien who's behind everything. He gets angry and yells at her, but she remains cool and confident. Meanwhile, Sien uses her strange new powers to manipulate others. Shin observes her quietly, unsure of what she's up to. In the school restroom, Sien takes off her glasses and sets them aside. Shin asks if she always wears them. Sien lies, saying she only recently got them because of weak vision. Shin picks them up and asks, "Do you see red lines when you wear these?" That's when Sien realizes Shin can see them too. Sien asks, "How many red lines do you see on my head?" Shin answers 1 and describes the red lines on others. She then asks where the glasses came from. Sien says she just found them in her locker. Shin holds onto the glasses and warns that someone involved in a murder case was also seen wearing similar glasses. She says it might be dangerous to keep them, but Sien isn't afraid. She grabs the glasses and leaves without saying anything. Later, the teacher who got the threatening message approaches Gyu-jin. He wants to know more about Sien's behavior. Gyu-jin says Sien seems normal for now, and she'll speak to her if anything happens, but the teacher insists he'll handle it himself. That evening, as Sien walks home, Shin secretly follows her. Sien suddenly turns and asks, "Do you know how these red lines disappear?" Shin remembers the night her mother killed her father and how their red line vanished, but she stays quiet and doesn't say a word. Shin, instead of answering, calmly asks Sien if she really plans to keep the glasses. Sien confidently says yes. She intends to use them to their fullest potential. In the next scene, Sien is hanging out with her boyfriend when she receives a message from the teacher, asking her to meet him on the school rooftop. He says he's arranged the money. Sien heads out with her boyfriend, unaware that someone is following her. It's Kim Hae. Earlier, when Sien and Shin were talking in the washroom, Kim Hae had overheard everything. While Sien is busy taking photos with her boyfriend, Kim Hae sneaks in and steals her purse. Later, when Sien checks her bag, she realizes the glasses are missing. Panic sets in. The scene then shifts to Kim Hae. She's now wearing the glasses and can clearly see the red lines. But suddenly, someone shoves her hard from behind, and the screen goes black. Back at home, Sien angrily calls Shin and accuses her of stealing the glasses. Shin is confused and tries to ask what she means, but Sien quickly says she's going to school and hangs up. Shin, now alarmed, doesn't understand why Sien is heading to school so late. Sien arrives on the school rooftop, where the teacher is already waiting. She quickly realizes that Kim Hae must have told him everything. The teacher nervously says that she shouldn't be doing this, but Sien just laughs and demands the money. The teacher begs her to stop. He has a family, a job. If this scandal comes out, everything will fall apart. But Sien reminds him how he turned a blind eye while she was being bullied. He never helped. Now it's too late. He pleads again and apologizes on behalf of everyone. He asks her to delete the photos. Just then, his phone buzzes. Someone has already sent the photos to his wife. He loses it. Furious, he demands to know if Sien sent them. But Sien simply replies, "What are you talking about?" with a cold stare. The teacher begins to shout in rage. Meanwhile, Shin is sprinting toward the school as fast as she can. But she's too late. In a horrifying moment, Sien falls from the rooftop right in front of her, lifeless. She dies instantly at that very moment. Sien's red line disappears. And with that shocking twist, the episode ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more episodes.